Her name was Emily Parker. When she was 16 years old, she was in a bad car crash. Her mother and father were killed, and Emily was very badly hurt. The car crash was the reason for her twisted leg. Daisy Comet offered to look after Emily. The lore finally agreed because there was no other person to look after the young girl. Daisy always thought that Emily's father was a rich man. Then she learned that there was only a small amount of money. After that, she was unkind to Emily. She made her very unhappy. Emily was never able to forget her leg. Her aunt seemed to say, "No man will love you. You will never get married and have children. No man wants a wife with a twisted leg." The years passed, and Emily began to believe her aunt. She stayed with her. She did what her aunt wanted her to do. She could see no reason to leave her aunt. So, she lived an unhappy life without hope. Then Emily started to make the dolls. Daisy saw how lovely the dolls were. She soon realized that she could sell them for a lot of money. She was right. After she sold a few, she decided Emily must work on them every day of the week, from morning until night. Daisy did not love Emily, but the girl produced hundreds of dolls over the years. Daisy was happy to take the money for them. But now Emily was ill, and Daisy immediately said to herself, without Emily and the dolls, the money will end. But what was killing Emily? I still did not know. I could see that she was afraid of her aunt, but it wasn't that. And I couldn't ask Emily because her aunt was always with us. Emily found it difficult to say anything to me with Daisy in the room. I did not tell Emily that perhaps I could make her legs straight. It was more important to discover why she didn't want to continue living. I told Emily to stop working on the dolls, and I brought her some books and some chocolates. For 10 days, she seemed to get better. During my next visit, she smiled at me for the first time. "That's better," I said. I was very pleased to see her happy face. "You must leave the dolls alone for another 10 days. I don't want you to work. I want you to rest, sleep, and read. Then we'll see." But I could see that Daisy was unhappy at these words. When I called again, she was waiting for me in her room. "You don't need to come anymore, Dr. Amoni," she said coldly. "But Emily must not." I started to say, "Emily is much better now," she said quickly. "Goodbye, doctor." My eyes went to the box in the corner of the room. 3 new dolls were lying on top of it. Their faces were as lovely as ever, but they had the look of death on them. Suddenly, I was frightened for Emily. I knew that Daisy was lying. I wanted to push this woman out of the way and crash through the door and see Emily. But I was a doctor. When doctors are told to leave, they have to go. I still did not know what Emily's problem was, but I guessed that Daisy was asking another doctor to call. So sadly, I left. But I couldn't forget Emily. I continued to worry about her in the days that followed. Not long after this, I became ill. It wasn't much at first, but as the days passed, it seemed to get worse. I visited a doctor's friend. "I can find nothing wrong with your body," he said. "Perhaps you work too hard." But I knew that this wasn't the reason. I continued to get worse. I didn't want to eat, and I lost weight. I began to look thin and pale. I felt tired, but I didn't sleep well at night. I sometimes dreamed that I saw Emily. She was calling to me for help while Daisy was holding her in her ugly arms. I thought about Emily all the time. I wasn't able to help her. I thought she wanted me to help her, and I did nothing. One night, I couldn't sleep at all. I walked up and down my room thinking about myself and my illness. It seemed that I was suffering from the same illness as Emily. Suddenly, I knew what was wrong. I was in love with Emily Parker, and because I couldn't look after her, I felt ill and unhappy. I know why Emily's dying, I thought. She's dying because nobody loves her. Nobody in the world is giving her hope for the future. Her mother and father are dead. Her aunt only keeps her because she makes money from Emily's dolls. Emily has no friends, and she feels ugly because of her leg. Her life is empty except for the dolls. I have to see her. I have to speak to her for a few minutes alone, or she'll be lost to me forever. I thought about this all through the night. And the next morning, I telephoned Jim Carter at his shop. "This is Dr. Amoni, Jim," I said. "Will you help me?" "I'll do what I can for you, doctor," Jim said. "You saved my son's life last year, and I'll never forget that. How can I help you?" "Thanks, Jim," I said. "Do you remember Mrs. Daisy Carlett, the doll woman?" "Yes, of course," said Jim. "When she comes into your shop again, I want you to telephone me." They have a long conversation with her. "I need 20 minutes. All right, said Jim. "Good," I said. "Thanks, Jim. I'll remember this for the rest of my life." I was worried about a telephone call while I was out. So each evening, I put my head around the door of his shop, but he just shook his head. There was no news. Then one day at 5:00 in the afternoon, the telephone rang. It was Jim. He just said, "She's here." I ran to the house where Emily lived. When I got there, I ran up the stairs. Luckily, the door was not locked, and I hurried through into Emily's room. She looked so thin now and very ill. She still had the paints and pieces of cloth around her. I thought she wanted to make one more doll before she died. She looked up when I came into the room. Her eyes opened wide in surprise when she saw me. She thought that it was Daisy. She said my name, but she didn't call me Dr. Amoni. She called me Stephen. "Emily!" I cried. "I've come to help you." "I know what's making you ill." "Does it matter now?" she said quietly. "There's still time, Emily," I said. "I know your secret. I know how I can make you well. But you must listen to me while I tell you." She just closed her eyes and said quietly, "No, don't say anything. Please leave me. I don't want to know. The end is near now." I sat down and held her hand. "Emily, please listen to me," I said gently. "When children are growing up, they receive love from their family. Then, when they're older, they can give that love to other people. They give love, and at the same time, they receive kindness, happiness, and hope. Then they have more love that they can give. But you've given your love, Emily, and you've received nothing. Now you have no love that you can give." I was not sure that she could still hear me, but I wanted her to live so much. I had to continue. "It was your aunt," I said. "She took away all your hopes for love and happiness. And later," I continued, "she did a worse thing. She took away your children." I looked at Emily. Have I killed her? I thought. The one person who loves her. Then I felt her small hand move in mine, and her eyes slowly opened. She seemed almost glad to hear these words. This gave me hope. I talked gently. I tried very hard because I wanted her to understand. Those dolls were your children, Emily, I said. You thought that you couldn't be a mother, so you made those beautiful dolls. Into each one, you put some of your love. You made them gently and carefully, and you loved them like your own children. Then your aunt took each one away, and she gave you nothing. You continued to use all your love. People can die when they have no love left inside them, Emily. I finished speaking and she moved. She seemed to understand what I was saying. But you won't die, Emily, I cried, because I love you. Do you hear me? I love you, and I can't live without you. Love me, she said quietly. But I have a twisted leg. How can you love me? That doesn't matter to me, Emily. I still love you, I said gently. But Daisy lied to you. I can make your legs straight. In a year, you'll walk like every other girl. I saw tears of happiness in her eyes. She smiled and put her arms out to me. I took her up in my arms, and she held me. I put my coat around her to keep her warm. Then I carried her across the room. All of a sudden, we heard the front door close loudly, and we heard someone running. Then Daisy, who was very upset, burst into Emily's room. Emily got scared and trembled. She hid her face against me. But Daisy came too late to do anything, and she realized that. She stayed quiet and didn't say anything when I walked by her. I held Emily close to me. I went out of her front door, down the stairs, and into the street outside. The sun shone and the sky was blue. Children played happily and noisily in the street. As I carried Emily home, 3 years have passed since then. Right now, Emily, my wife, is playing with our little boy. Soon, we'll have another baby joining our family. Emily used to make dolls, but she doesn't do that anymore. She doesn't have to. But I feel grateful inside because it all started when I first saw a lovely doll in a shop window and fell in love with it.